Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. He's Alex Lord. I am Chaser. We are continuing to discuss the Ronald Acuña Jr. injury and all of the implications. And this is what I know a lot of you guys want to hear now that we're a few days removed from the injury. And it's I've been asked this a million times, and I've been told this, I've been asked this. The Braves will never be able to overcome this. Not just Ronald Acuña, but Spencer Strider. How many teams can lose the favorite to win, the odds-on favorite to win the NL MVP, and the odds-on favorite to win the NL Cy Young in the first 2 months of the season and still somehow survive this? And I agree, it sounds terrible, and not a lot of teams will do it, and it will be infinitely more difficult, which is something you're going to hear a lot of me say. But I mean, we did it. Like, we did this in 2021. We did this with a worse pitching staff in 2020 and a way worse roster. I mean, go look at some of the names that started after that Ronald Acuña Jr. injury, and you're like, how the hell did this team ever win a World Series? Well, they did this by landing Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and Adam Duvall, who obviously played unbelievable roles that they kind of played out of their shoes, and obviously the bullpen played out of their shoes. But at the end of the day, this is baseball, and baseball is the hardest championship in the world, because if you get in the dance, you have a chance. The Diamondbacks are a perfect example of this. Their roster was not that good last year. They made it to the World Series. The Phillies were the 6th seed in the National League a couple years ago. They made it to the World Series, 2 games away from winning the World Series. The Braves in 2021 did not have the best roster in the league. They won the championship. If we're being real just about the situation as a whole, right? Let's say the Braves had fully healthy, everything worked out the way that we expected coming into the year. They had a 25% chance of winning the World Series, right? Not great, even though they are the best team in the league, similar to what they were a year ago. Now that number's down to what? 16, 17 if they make it into the dance. So the difference in percentages of you winning a World Series aren't that great. I do think the Braves are going to have to add, and I expect them to add to the outfield. They'll probably look at the starting pitching market. I don't know if they'll end up making a move in that direction, but a lot of it will be dependent on Fried and Sale and Morton and those guys. But like, moves will be made. They have to be made. There's predicaments that are now here that weren't at the start of the season. But in terms of just like the reality of winning a championship, it takes a hit, but it's not as dramatic of a hit as a lot of people think. Because you get in the dance, anything can happen, especially when you have 2 guys like Chris Sale and Max Fried pitching the way that they are.
Yeah, talent is always important in any sport, but in baseball, it almost feels less important than some other major league sports in terms of like timing and talent are equally important in winning a championship. Not only do you have to have the right timing with, maybe your opponent, but you also have to have the right timing with what you mentioned in 2021, where the Braves were playing well above their, expectations. They were playing well above expectations. And the same could be said for several championship teams who either made it to the World Series or won the World Series. That timing is just as important, sometimes more important than talent. Now, obviously, the Braves could have been bounced by the Phillies in the first round, again, with Ronald Acuña, with Spencer Strider. Now, without them, we can't paint this optimistically because those are the 2 best players on this team. But if you want some solace, if you want to rest your head at night knowing the Braves still have a chance, is they still have one of the most talented teams pitching and hitting without those 2 guys. And if everybody who we are depending on is playing at their best and the rest of the league is going through whatever they're going through, by October rolls around, the Braves will once again be looked at as this championship favorites. It's that simple. There's still 2 to 3 MVP caliber players on this team. There's still 2 Cy Young caliber pitchers on this team. That bullpen is still star-studded. We still have one of the best executives in the league in Alex Anthopoulos, who is going to wheel and deal at the trade deadline. So this season is all, I know, we're still feeling the effects of the Ronald Acuña Jr. injury, but the doom and gloom, sky is falling stuff about the actual team seems overblown to me.
Yeah, I mean, over 162 games, you're going to be better with Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuña, and there's no doubt about it. And yes, winning this division right now, and now that you've dug yourself a hole and you add this on top of it, is going to be incredibly difficult. Like, I would go out there and say, as high as I've been on this team and how I thought they would easily be able to overcome this deficit, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that anymore. But the good news is, guess what? 6 teams make the playoffs. And the good news, once the playoff game, like you said, it's timing. Guys just need to step up. Like, you need to have a Jorge Soler, because frankly, like, Ronald Acuña hasn't performed exceptionally in the playoffs. But guess who did? Jock Peterson and Jorge Soler. Now over 162 games, are those guys going to be better than Acuña? Not even close. Not even a chance. Combined, they won't be as productive as Ronald Acuña. But over a 5-game stretch, yes, they can be. Over a 5-game stretch, could Jarred Kelenic just catch fire and hit 3 home runs in 2 games and Chris Sale look like the best pitcher on the planet and Max Fried? And who knows, maybe Ian Anderson comes back and gives us some of this magic. I mean, we're talking about 2021, right? I'm just saying, like, over a 5-game stretch, over a 7-game stretch, anything can happen. Like, the Athletics can beat the Braves. I mean, hell, look what we've looked at the Braves. Look at the Braves when they had all that talent. Weren't necessarily playing the best baseball. Now, of 162 games, you know they're going to figure it out. But it's just, it goes to say, like, even when you have all that talent, it's no guaranteed to win. And especially when you're playing other good teams, like, it's a 7-game sample size. And that's why it's the hardest thing to do to repeat. And I talked to my dad about it. I don't know if we'll see repeat champions again with the 16 playoff, because you add more teams in. There's more teams that can get hot, catch fire, and win the World Series. So yes, winning the division just got a million times more harder. I would even venture to say, and this is the first time and maybe the last time you see this, I don't think the Braves will win the division because of the injuries and everything. They still could, but it's going to be very, very hard. Playoffs, though, entirely different beast. Like, it's a 5-game sample size. Like, anything can happen.
With Ronald Acuña Jr. and with Spencer Strider, have the Braves' bats been somewhat even close to what they've been the past 2 postseasons against the Phillies? It didn't matter how good Spencer Strider or Ronald Acuña Jr. was playing. Those 2 guys individually couldn't even overcome that. And it goes the same thing this year. Guys just have to step up in October. It's just like any postseason. You're going to have some unlikely heroes. And not only that, you have to have your guys, your stars, perform like stars. And to this point, past that 2021 season, the Braves stars have fallen short in the postseason, particularly the bats. There's only been a couple of guys who've stepped up, and you're never going to win a World Series like that. So it doesn't matter who's on the team. If they play the same way they played in the past 2 Octobers, it doesn't matter if we have 3 MVPs and 4 Cy Youngs or none, because that kind of performance is never going to get it done. You have to have unlikely heroes. You have to be playing your best ball at the right time. And if you're looking at this as a silver lining, we are going to be down in the division. We are going to be fighting at every single turn. We are going to be fighting at the end of the season. Maybe that has a different effect on the Braves' outcome in the postseason. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, and then also, I mean, listen, like, let's say it. We've said it several times. Like, there is I know it's only been happening for 2 years, but there's somewhat proof out there that winning the division and getting that first round bye isn't necessarily beneficial. Now, you can say, oh, the Braves are just chokers, or you could say the Dodgers are just chokers, or you could say all these teams that have had very little success as the top seeds and getting that first round bye. Or you can say there's something to it. We'll know with a bigger sample size. I think there is something to it. And listen, it could end up like, that's the thing. Like, baseball is such a weird sport, and this new format is so new, and there's so many things that we don't really know. But to this point, it hasn't been advantageous to have that first round bye. It helps to come in hot. It helps to have some momentum riding off. It helps not to have those days off. So there's a lot of things that could be working in the Braves' favor this postseason that haven't been working in the Braves' favor in the past. And that's why I'm just saying, like, thinking about this year, I'm not going to sit here and cry about just this season. I'll cry for Ronald Acuña all day, but I'm not going to sit here and cry and say the season's over right now.
The season isn't over, and the division isn't over. I mean, are we just forgetting how many All-Stars are still on this team without Ronald Acuña and without Spencer Strider? Like Max Fried, Chris Sale, both Cy Young candidates this year. Charlie Morton's no scrub. Ronaldo Lopez is quietly putting together an all-star campaign. We've got an all-star catcher, an all-star first baseman, an all-star third baseman, an all-star center fielder. Like, this team is still not scrubs. Like, we are good enough as currently constructed with the sketchy outfield corner duo of Jarred Kelenic and Adam Duvall over the course of the season. We are still good enough as currently constructed to chase down the Phillies. You just got to get hot over a couple of months.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely don't think the division's over. I think it's tougher, but it's definitely not over. There's way too much talent on this team to say that. They've done it time and time again, and you never know what can happen. And and Alex Anthopoulos is going to add. Like, there are going to be new faces, and if he adds impact players that have big second halves for this team, you never know what can happen. So yes, the sky is not falling. It sucks. I hate it for Acuña, but there are some guys worth talking about. We're going to talk about them after the break because Spencer Schwellenbach is coming to the show.